favor of looking at a basic income grant, looking at ways of getting people included into the economy. So I would suggest that he gets engaged with on that. But then also BASA, the Banking Association of South Africa, looking at the fact that we don't want people queuing for their grants until the stage in which we're able to have the smartphone giving the benefit to everybody. We need to have the banks coming forward with far more accessible and free products. So that would be the one sector. Everybody else seems to be coming forward trying to find solutions. Let's bring them into that discussion as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Isabel. Did I hear you mention banks and free in one sentence? All right, let me go to Mr. Jehoma and perhaps give you an opportunity again just to give us your concluding remarks.
It is true that building a future society that is inclusive is contingent on government and business, and hopefully at another platform such as this, we can invite people from the private sector and those such as Keskuvadia, who has raised opinions around this issue. I think what many people don't know is that social protection and providing welfare is older than 3,000 years. It is with us and it's going to be pretty much part of a global future. South Africa has played a leading role in the developing world. I believe and am positive that we will continue to do so. Many institutions have come to SASA, have come to DSD to look at what we're doing, and they've been impressed. Unfortunately for us, some of them are now surpassing us with rolling out social protection programs, with integrated information systems, and building their capacities. It is timely for us now to continue this conversation and build that better future. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Mr. Jehoma. Dr. Magasela?
No, the last point from me really is that the research was conducted. It adds to an existing body of knowledge. The challenge is how then do we move from research to policy? That is really what now is the responsibility of both the Department of Social Development and SASA, and how they navigate that terrain. Thank you.
So, Brenton, then, the ball falls back into your court.
Thanks, Kathy. Before I make my two points I want to make in conclusion, I just want to say it's been extreme pleasure debating with old former DSD colleagues. I'm actually thinking maybe I should also leave the department so I can speak as freely as them. And it's always a pleasure to debate and have these kind of intellectual discussions with Isabel as well. The 2 points from our side within the department that I think is absolutely critical in the next period is that we need stability. We need to have certainty around this SRD grant and where it's going, and that points to Dr. Magasela's point is we got to bed that policy down. Where are we going as a country with this? This instability doesn't only create havoc for the agency, for example. You know, we starting up the SRD grant and we're shutting it down, and we have to rebuild systems and we shut it down, and we can't continue in that ad hoc manner. We have to have, from a government point of view, a fair amount of stability. It also becomes difficult for the agency to communicate a message if they don't know what that message is. If the qualifying criteria is always changing, and through this last year, we probably changed the qualifying criteria 3 or 4 times. And so that level of stability we need, and that's also at the societal level. People need to know what's coming, they need to know it's secure, they need to know they can rely and depend on government for this if they fall within a particular risk contingency. And so I think certainty and stability is absolutely critical in the next few months. But we also need to look at ways in which we strengthen our partnerships with various community-based organizations. And I think one of the key aspects to our rapid rollout and success of this was the sort of partnerships that SASA had with the NDA and other community-based organizations out there to just expand our reach and make us, enable us to just get further, reach more people in a very short space of time. And I think we mustn't lose that, and we must continue to build on that going forward. Thanks.
Mr. Brenton van Vrede, the Chief Director, Social Assistance at the Department of Social Development. Mr. Selwyn Jehoma, who is an independent consultant at Social Protection. And Ms. Isabel Fry, the Director of Studies in Poverty and Inequality Institute. It's been a pleasure really hosting and moderating this conversation with you all. We're now getting to the last item on our program today, which is really more of a ceremonial handover of this report that will be taking place. I'm going to ask Dr. Magasela to please invite onto the stage Ms. Sibeko. All right, well, I suppose no need for that anymore. Ms. Brenda Sibeko, the DDG Comprehensive Social Security, and I'm going to ask that you hand over literally this report to her. You can give them a round of applause. Don't be scared. Thank you so much for that official handover. Ms. Sibeko, there is a microphone not too far from where you are sitting, and perhaps an opportunity for you just also to give us some of your own reflections before we wrap our program up.
Thank you so much, Kathy. And thank you to the audience that's here and to all the people that have attended this webinar. It's been fascinating. The conversation has been very rich. And of course, we have to thank Dr. Magasela. You will see, just from the quality of the work that has been done here, what the department has lost. Because he used to be the head of social policy at the department. And then he left, and then of course we had to find a way to bring him back. And we are very happy that he's back. So the research is very, very valuable to us. Of course, we've engaged as he was doing the research in order to learn some of the lessons that he was finding. And that has also in some way informed some of the changes that happened as we were continuing the implementation of the grant. So some of the issues that he raised, we started to address in future iterations. For example, the issues of gender. We did change that criteria, for example. And then issues of some people, especially in the rural areas, not being reached. That's why SASSA had engaged the NDA to work with other NPOs in order to assist those people who do not have access to technology or are not able to use technology. So we did, over the period of the implementation, learn those things. But those are very valuable lessons. And I've enjoyed the conversation that Isabel I can't say she's an honorary DSD employee, because she says all the things that we would like to say as, that when you work in a government department. So it's valuable. She's been on the social security road with us for a very long time, and we continue to value her input. And Mr. Jehoma was our boss, so we continue to see him as SJ. This was sort of like a time to reminisce about all the social security policy work we've been doing. So it's been interesting in that sense. But in terms of the actual research and the findings of the research, we were not surprised by a lot of it because we did target the unemployed, and we know that the highest level of unemployment is in that age group of under 34. So we were pleased to see that the large proportion of the grant went to them, because those were the primary target. Of course, we are not pleased that they are needing to be getting a grant. We would like for the economy to grow, for those people to be able to access income, a much higher income than even the food poverty line that we are trying to get to, at least in terms of the grants program. So from that perspective, we realized that the policy that we set up to some extent reached the target that it meant to. But of course, we ran into challenges because of the technology that we had to use. In the context of COVID, you could not do a lot of physical applications, and you couldn't do physical handing over of benefits and so on. So we had to rely on technology. But the lessons that, for me, a very positive lesson, although there were exclusion errors, we realized that, in fact, our understanding of our community, we didn't realize that they have as much capacity, in fact, to engage in the technological era as they did. So we were pleasantly surprised that such a large majority of people were, in fact, able to use this digital system. And with regards to the gaps that have been identified, of course, those are things that, as a learning curve, we'll continue to improve on, and we must acknowledge. I'm really concerned when I hear some of the people that are raising the issues from the audience. It's concerning to us, of course, because we would like to reach the most vulnerable. And so we are looking at mechanisms to address that, understanding that we are in the 4IR era. We can't go back. We need to move forward, and we need to find ways of bringing the others who are still behind with us. And we also need to find ways of those who are really unable to move forward with us, then work with civil society organizations to reach them directly. So we don't completely close the face-to-face interactions and the direct office interactions, because we can't close them to everybody, but more and more and more, in order to improve the quality of service, to improve our turnaround times, and make sure that more and more people are engaging in broader society. The economy as a whole is operating on a digital basis. So we need to bring people into that space and use the SASA platforms as that. So that's the value of the way in which we are moving forward. The conversation that arose here was pointing to things that we are looking at. For example, we are as concerned that the grant is only at 350. We would like to see it grow up. Of course, we'd like to see it go higher than that. But we'd also like to see other parts of the economy work better, so that people don't only live at the food poverty line. From DSD's side, we can be arguing for it to go up to the food poverty line, but actually, we don't think that's adequate either, because nobody can, if you just have food and that's it, how then do you actually participate in other aspects of the economy? So we see it as a starting point, but it needs to move. And Brenton is correct about the importance of extending it and creating some certainty, so we don't do the stop-start that we've been doing. And this is an engagement that we are doing in government to say, how do you make sure that this begins to be extended? So in that sense, we've heard a lot of the critique, which is valuable. We've been hearing it all along, and we are making means to address some of those things. It's very valuable. The constitutional thing is the foundation, the provision that everyone should be able to access social assistance. It's a foundational thing that guides the policy work that we are doing. And however, we are on a progressive realization route that is taking longer than we'd like it to take, but that's where we're trying to get to. So from that perspective, I think we are moving forward, and as Kathy, the minister has been saying this many times, we need to be thinking about a basic income support for people and so on. And we are in this series continuing to that. So today's webinar was part of a series of interactions. We had the World Bank assess our current social grants framework and tell us reflect to us where we are strong, where we are weak. That happened last week. And then today we're looking at the 350, learning from the research that Dr. Magasela has done for us, which we will apply to future policy lessons as he advises. And then we've heard the issues that he's identifying around some of the recommendations. The primary one being the Social Security Registry, so that we have a better understanding of our client, and not only a better understanding of them, but we also use that register to enable them to navigate the broader social security system. So it's not just the grant, it's also unemployment insurance and compensation fund. It's getting domestic workers, for example, who currently are covered to some extent in UIF, to also access other benefits, compensation fund and so forth. And for us as a social security sector, not just DSD, but the other departments to look at how do we build on what we are providing as a social protection system in the country, to actually develop the people of this country and help them to make an impact in the economy, navigate all the different elements of it. So that work is a work that we've been proposing since Mr. Joma was in the department. But it is continuing now, and SASA has started to look at some aspects of implementing that through the interactions with UIF, with compensation fund, with different systems. So we are progressively getting in that direction, but the road is still quite far. And I'm hoping that the people that are here will attend the next session that we'll be having. It's next week on the 26th, Maureen. 26th, we will be looking at basic income support, which is one of the things that is emerging from here as a key proposal, is consider how to make this a longer term thing, consider how to make sure that you give it to everyone, and so that you address the very difficult problem of means testing and exclusion errors, which for as long as you have means testing, you will have exclusion errors. However good your systems are, you will have those exclusion errors. But in a country where you don't have unlimited budgets, you then need to prioritize and say, who do we start with? So we do need to work at the systems, and we need to find ways of making sure that our systems are not excluding vulnerable people. And so as we improve that, we also create motivation for more and more funding to be put into the system so that we can expand the coverage that we want to give people. Yeah, I think that's in summary.
Thank you so much for that, Ms. Sibeko. I think one of the important things for me, and which is really encouraging, is the fact that after listening to everybody here today, the department is not blind to where some of the challenges might be. And it's really commendable, the fact that you are leading the conversation, you're leading the process of seeing where are our biggest weaknesses and how can we better improve on those weaknesses, because it means that the frustrations of South Africans are not lost on you, which is often something that you don't get, you know, when people are complaining about the systems and just the difficulties that they are having. Of course, the impression that is created is that, why does it look like these people at the department simply don't care? They're not answering our phones, but this certainly helps to bring a different kind of perspective into what is informing the work that you're doing and how you're going about doing it. So thank you so much for that closing. And it really brings us, in effect, to the end of our program today. It's been a pleasure being your moderator and being in conversation with all of the different officials here. After you said, you know, Mr. Magasela is more free now that he's out. Brenton, I think your get out of free jail card will be on the other side. Not sure that it's going to be anytime soon, but it's a sentiment that's shared by some of your colleagues clearly as well. That's where we'll leave it then for today with today's webinar. As you heard from Ms. Sibeko, there will be a third part of this conversation focusing on the basic income grant and as well as the role of women and how to ensure that going forward there isn't this exclusion that unfortunately affects what is really the majority of women, which means the majority of people in this country as well. Thank you so much for being part of today's conversation.